A bold tactic gone terribly wrong. The ATF Bureau in Phoenix had an idea to track firearms purchased by Mexican drug cartels rather than intercept them. They knowingly allowed traffickers to get their hands on hundreds of weapons, but the plan backfired with devastating consequences. This is the ATF gunwalking scandal. ATF refers to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, in this case in Phoenix. They are the decision makers who permitted this mission, Operation Fast and Furious. In September 2009, in an effort to counteract the increasing violence of Mexican drug cartels, ATF Phoenix permitted gun dealers to sell to suspected traffickers for the cartels. This was a part of a larger operation called Project Gunrunner, a mission that had already come under scrutiny for a similar gun-walking idea called Operation Wide Receiver, which left hundreds of firearms unaccounted for in the hands of drug lords. Despite this previous information, Operation Fast and Furious was given the go-ahead. The first interesting detail came before the mission was even approved. Normally, under the Department of Justice and ATF policy, any firearm movements that are suspected to be illegal are required to be intercepted. However, federal prosecutor Emery Hurley claimed that the suspicious movement lacked sufficient evidence for a prosecution, and so the operation was given approval to try and gain more evidence instead of intercepting the weapons. Let's see how the operation was formed. On October 31, 2009, ATF received a call from a local gun store reporting a suspicious purchase. 4 men had purchased multiple AK-47s, and it is suspected that they were straw purchasers, people who work as buyers for illegal firearms traffickers. A few weeks later, more information arose when Phoenix Office's Group 7, who were leading the operation, identified over 25 straw purchasers working for a prolific trafficker. The illegal team had moved hundreds of weapons, with one buyer getting a hold of over 600 weapons himself. Due to this team's base being in a car shop and their keenness for street racing, Operation Fast and Furious was given its name. Normally, a cooperating firearms dealer would form a contract with ATF, Mexico City office, and the Mexican law enforcement to identify potential straws and escalate the situation to relevant authorities. However, this operation was specifically left without contracts to the Mexico City office and Mexican law enforcement to keep them in the dark about the ATF's operation. Instead, GPS units were loaded into the weapons by the El Paso Intelligence Center to track the weapons. Something not considered was how the battery life on the GPS lasted only a few days, and the tracker signals failed rather easily, such as when in car trunks. This set the ATF up for failure from the very beginning. The firearms dealers became more concerned as the same faces came into their shops purchasing large quantities of weapons. So much so that one dealer sent a series of emails to Group 7 supervisor David Voth. However, Voth assured him that ATF was using a host of techniques to track the suspects, but could not provide any more details. The unease was not exclusively external either, as members of Group 7 became increasingly upset themselves. Agents reported watching illegal arms swap hands in the cartel daily, while their supervisors prevented their intervention, which was usually protocol. Instead, ATF insisted they needed more evidence in order to intervene, without creating political upset over Second Amendment rights, particularly during an election year. Due to this, wiretaps were requested to spy on the traffickers, and the delay in getting these approved only led to more guns being purchased. One of the main targets was a man called Manuel Fabian Solis Acosta. ATF placed a poll camera outside his home in Phoenix, and also received reports from the DEA that he was wanted based on information from their own wires. He had been getting over 20 family members to purchase weapons for him, which he then sold to cartel members. He was arrested on May 29, 2010, with a collection of weapons and cocaine. Chief ATF investigator Hope McAllister released Celise Acosta on the basis that he would help her to find two of his associates. But these associates ended up being ATF paid informants and so were not indictable. By June 2010, over 1,600 firearms costing over $1 million had been purchased by suspects under the ATF radar. Some of these weapons had been found at various crime scenes, totaling 179 in Mexico and 130 in the U.S., with more ATF agents voicing their concerns over the observed gunwalking. But it was already too late. The night of December 14, 2010 was a disaster for U.S. law enforcement. In Peck Canyon, Arizona, U.S. Border Patrol Officer Brian Terry and his team were patrolling 11 miles out from Mexico, where they found 5 suspected illegal immigrants. They used non-lethal beanbag rounds to try and detain the suspects, who returned with fire of their own. A firefight ensued, and Brian Terry was shot and killed. After the arrest of 4 of the members, 2 AK pattern rifles were seized and traced back to a Phoenix gun store involved in Operation Fast and Furious. The gunwalking had claimed yet another victim, but ATF still deemed the situation too unimportant to alert the Attorney General. The concerned ATF agents were haunted by the loss of Terry and decided to take matters into their own hands. Agent John Dodson contacted ATF's various higher-ups, such as the Chief Counsel and the Ethics Section, spreading information of the gunwalking. On January 25, 2011, details of the case were revealed to the public and Operation Fast and Furious was called to an end. In total, over 2,000 weapons had been knowingly sold to straw purchasers during the operation. Out of those, the only ones recovered were 389 in the U.S. and 276 in Mexico, leaving many still in the hands of the cartel. This led to various situations where these guns were used against the U.S. and Mexican law enforcement, such as on May 29, 2011. The Mexican police sent 4 helicopters to attack a cartel compound, but they were met with surprisingly heavy fire from a .50 caliber Browning machine gun, which was linked back to the ATF scandal. Questions were also raised in the death of Jamie Zapata, a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer who was killed on February 15, 2011 by a weapon purchased by a known straw purchaser during Operation Fast and Furious. Various weapons were used by the Sinaloa cartel against the Mexican military, and some weapons even found themselves in the hands of the infamous El Chapo Joaquin Guzman. Overall, Operation Fast and Furious was riddled with careless oversights that led to the strengthening of Mexican cartel forces, a juxtaposition to its intentions. What's your opinion about this controversial story? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Sergeant Rooster, over and out.